If this chart represented Africa's economic growth, where would you rather invest? Here, before the big rise, or here at the peak? I believe this is where we're currently positioned. It is my belief that there is a number of factors that are combining right now to make Africa a very interesting investment opportunity. If there was ever a time to come to the continent to lay down roots, to have some type of connection, or to have a getaway, the opportunity is definitely now. The first thing I want to get out of the way is a negative factor that is also intertwined in a bunch of positive things as to why I believe Africa is a great place to think about coming and investing. As I'm filming this right now, we are seeing horrible images coming out of the Middle East. Palestine and Israel are at each other's necks. I believe this is a domino alongside the Ukraine and Russian war, and there'll probably be more dominoes to come in the future that hint at the possibility of massive, terrible conflict, i.e. potential world war. I think it would be foolish not to at least consider where you would want to be if something like that was to happen. The answer for me is the continent of Africa. I spend a significant amount of my year in Uganda. I have a partner here and I also have a business here. There's no use trying to run to the mountains at the heat of the moment. The best thing to do is plan in advance and lay your roots down before things go turbo. Now let's move on to the more positive factors. I've spoken quite a few times about the demographics of Africa.
By 2025, Africa will feature more than 100 cities with over 1 million people, and by 2030, 42% of all young people in the world will live in Africa, not to mention a rapidly growing middle class. So what you end up with is a vast area with huge economic potential for new markets to develop.
Need I say more? Can you believe right now in 2023, there is still land in the city limits of Kampala that is $5,000. Tell me what piece of land in New York or London costs $5,000. I know there's more to it when it comes to actually buying land and making sure it's yours and protected and things like that. But it is a bit of a no-brainer. You can come to a place, lay down roots, buy some land and kind of forget about it and use it as a long-term investment. People are more educated, more understanding of global business. There's more borderless digital opportunities that bring money from the outside into the continent. That connectivity is part of the flywheel. They can educate themselves about agriculture and how to utilize the resources here. Incidentally, the resources is another part of the flywheel. Of course, we're seeing terrible things happen in Congo and issues around taking resources out of the continent. But as Africa starts to get its act together and we're seeing these coups around everywhere, hopefully we're going to start taking better care and better control of our resources. The legacy colonial influences are starting to lose a grip on these countries. I mean, we're not there yet, and it remains to be seen if you remove one dictator or one leader and it's replaced by another one just as bad. But I'm optimistic that the people will hold whoever's in charge accountable moving forward.
The revolutionary government in Niger has just increased the price of uranium that it exports on the world market to 200 euros per kilogram. It was previously paying, or rather charging, 80 cents. The French were getting Niger's uranium for 80 cents per kilogram, and the world market price is 200 euros per kilogram, which is what little Macron will have to pay from now on.
You know, my mind goes to cobalt and the fact that everybody uses it, and 90% plus of it is found in the continent of Africa. That basically means if we can get our act together, Africa can name its price. We have global fast internet on the horizon through the form of Starlink and other enterprises. Add that to the young digital native, add that to the growing population, add that to business, add that to resources, and we've still got the flywheel going strong. It's cheaper than ever to access information, independent teachers, independent schools, places and options for kids that may not have historically had the resources to physically travel and get good information and books and things like that. Now, at the click of a button, they can access, Harvard. They can access the most up-to-date quality information for them to grow and improve their lives. As the middle class grows, the education grows, the infrastructure grows, I think the populations are going to start not putting up with the political shenanigans that we see amongst the political elites here in Africa. Checks and balances will be demanded by the population, creating a more stable political situation in many unstable countries. Another thing we're seeing is the rise of these economic groups.
This is Arusha, otherwise known as the Geneva of Africa. This city was chosen to be the headquarters for the East African Community, an organization that wants to manifest itself into the world's newest and Africa's first great power, the East African Federation.
You've got countries starting to say, let's have borderless travel, let's have borderless digital interaction, so that a small country in Africa is connected to a big group, which means we can start going out, sharpening our elbows against the likes of China, America, and big political forces. They will have to respect these groups and start to make mutually beneficial deals rather than one-sided deals. We're seeing major economies around the world putting investment into Africa.
This is the country of Morocco. Here, the EU is planning to commit 1.6 billion euros to be invested in the country's green and digital transition. This plan was announced at an official visit by the President of the European Commission in Morocco's capital.
Yes, they have their agendas. It's up to us to protect the way we do business with these people. All these ideas around building renewable energy and the resources will build jobs, will build opportunities for this massive population on the ground.
When Michael came to Nigeria for the first time, and I said this to you maybe around 7 years ago, I think there had been no Nigerian company in Y Combinator, only one, right? And Michael came and, spent a lot of time with the ecosystem with people like us.
That's Michael Seibel, the managing director of Y Combinator.
So he's been a huge supporter of the ecosystem. And I can say definitively, after Michael's trip, maybe 10 Nigerian companies went to Y Combinator that year. And there's been many, many, many more since then. And many more African companies have gone to Y Combinator since then. So at least in my timeline of African tech history, there's before Michael Seibel and there's after Michael Seibel.
Y Combinator is instrumental in angel investing right now in Silicon Valley. And to have one of the founders of Twitch, who's an African American, who is regularly traveling to the continent of Africa, putting his knowledge and investment and money into tech in Africa is an amazing situation for the continent. Africa is going to solve its banking issues. I've mentioned cryptocurrency before on this channel. With my shoe business, the cost to ship to another country can be 3, 4, 5, 6 times the amount of the shoe itself, which just doesn't make sense. But once logistics get sorted out, my business is open to the continent, and so is everybody else's business. E-commerce can flourish, and you'll start to see another economic boom, a digital economic boom happening across the continent. There'll be cheap and affordable healthcare. I've spoken about artificial intelligence, the innovations that's bringing to the health industry. More schools, more hospitals, more ways to service a growing middle class. Africa is going to become an even nicer place to visit. Tourism is going to keep on increasing, and all of the economics that come along with that. Like I said at the beginning of the video, there is a massive flywheel happening right now. All of these technologies, all these innovations are mixing and creating a wonderful situation for growth on the continent. So if I haven't convinced you yet, I don't know what more to say. Make sure that if you're interested in the continent of Africa, you book a flight. Rather than going to the Caribbean, rather than going somewhere you've been before, why not take a trip? Visit Kenya, visit Ghana, visit South Africa. Start to see what these places have to offer. I think you'll be surprised if you've never seen it before. If you think what I'm saying is right, what I think you should do is check out
Thank you.